many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
And welcome to Anti-Tyranny News Radio. We're broadcasting here on UCY.TV. Thank you for joining me this evening. I'm going to dive right into some news. I talked about journalist Barrett Brown. Journalist Barrett Brown sentenced to 63 months in federal prison. After more than 2 years behind bars, journalist Barrett Brown was given a sentence of 63 months in federal prison. Brown was also ordered to pay $890,000 in restitution fees to a number of companies that were hacked in 2011. Brown was arrested in September 2012 during an FBI investigation into his role in the hacking of the servers of H.B. Gary Federal and Stratfor by the decentralized hacker collective Anonymous. And I would say collective is a loose word in this text because anybody that knows what Anonymous is, it's not a collective, it's what you do. If you have false personas on the internet or go through encrypted networking or anything like that, you are on the internet anonymously. And it's when a collective gets together, anonymous, being anonymous, and carry out something is really what that comes down to. Judge Sam Lindsay also ruled that 50% of all gifts or awards will go to Stratfor and Combined Security, two of the companies involved in the hack. Upon release, Brown cannot handle credit cards, checks, or bank accounts. He will be on parole for at least 2 years and will only be allowed to use an approved computer which will monitor all of his activity. All the way until the very end of the hearing, prosecutor Kadena Heath attempted to persuade the government to enhance the charges. Heath wanted to upgrade the level of offense, which would have increased the possible sentence up to 71 months. Judge Lindsay denied this final request from the prosecution. Much of the morning proceedings focused once again on whether Brown was a journalist performing protected activities or a former journalist who crossed the line into cyber terror. Brown has been an activist and a journalist. His articles and blogs have been featured in numerous publications, including The Guardian, Vanity Fair, and the Huffington Post. Judge Lindsay sided with the government in their argument that Brown's role was more than merely reporting on the hacked account. He considered himself a member of the hacker collective Anonymous, collaborated with them, identified targets, and provided advice. The judge stated Barrett Brown himself would admit that he crossed a line from journalist into supporter of Anonymous. Well, whether you support him or not does not mean that you're not a journalist. I support Anonymous, which is not any one group, not any of what anonymous people may do on the internet. They do hacking stuff that I do not agree with. I see it just as much as an intrusion on my privacy as the intrusion by government on my privacy. But I do believe there should be a role to be able to remain unnamed, unnumbered on the internet. And that's basically what being anonymous is. It's not supporting any collective, it's supporting the idea. So it's being put into a whole different context by the judge. And you can read the rest of this article. It's on benswan.com, and it's just titled Journalist Barrett Brown Sentenced to 63 Months in Federal Prison. But I do want to play a clip from We Are Change. They put this out yesterday, breaking Barrett Brown decision, the end of internet freedom. And I do think this is crucial, definitely when, a whistleblower isn't going to first engage in a journalist completely open. They're going to want to test their waters. They're going to want to, test. Excuse me. They're going to want to test, the journalists to see if they can trust them. So it's one of those things that I think for journalists, it's going to play a big role. And I think what it's going to be used as is a clampdown on whistleblowers and journalists. The state-run media that, anyways, they always play what the government wants them to play and avoids topics or scandals that the people in power don't want shown. But let me go ahead and play this clip here.
Just broke right now with Barrett Brown, the activist and journalist, being sentenced to 63 months in jail, forced to pay $890,000 in restitution, and 3 years supervised release on 3 charges by the federal government. Now, if you don't know about the Barrett Brown case, it's an extremely important case when it comes to freedom of speech and freedom of the press. Barrett Brown, as an activist and independent journalist, copied a hyperlink when the Stratford hack was released. Just for some background information, the Stratford hack that was actually operated by the FBI. The FBI infiltrated an anonymous sect called LoadSec, and they were able to flip one of their leaders, Sabu, and then with FBI servers, with leadership, with supervision of the FBI, LoSec, this group that was controlled by the FBI, unknowingly, other than Sabu, organized a hack against Stratford. This Stratford information came out, and Barrett Brown, the activist, the independent journalist, shared the link. This brought the attention of the federal authorities on Barrett Brown. They ransacked his house. They threatened his mother. Barrett Brown then goes on YouTube and makes a vague threat against the FBI agent. which was not smart in any way, shape, or form. But because of this, Barrett Brown was facing 100 years in jail. He later plea dealed and was able to drop some of the charges of sharing the hyperlink. But he still faced 3 charges. Charges of transmitting threats, accessories to hacking charges, and interfering with the execution of the search warrant. Those 3 charges, what they really break down to is uploading a YouTube video that contained unfortunate statements, efforts to redact sensitive emails that have been produced by hackers, and hiding a laptop in a kitchen cabinet. This is why Barrett Brown, the independent journalist, the activist, is now going to jail for 63 months right now. Now, of course, he has already served 28 months in jail for his for everything the government was charging him with. So many people are saying, what good behavior, he could be out in 2 years, possibly. But that is not certain yet. But the fact is, this is an extremely important court case, because Barrett Brown originally came under the eyes of authority, was persecuted by the federal government for sharing a hyperlink. Now, of course, those charges were dropped. He had to plea deal to get those charges dropped. He had to plead guilty, and that's why he is going to jail for 63 months right now. We see many prosecutors always prosecute to the fullest extent and go beyond the measures to make sure people are stuck in a position where they have to plead deal to lower charges so they still get a prosecution. We see this many times in many federal court cases, especially when it comes to monumental, important cases like this case. But what is also very important is that Barack Obama is actually proposing legislation that will make it illegal for people to share links. Share a password, click on a link, you will go to prison. He is creating a law that will make it illegal to do this. He's making a law so Barrett Brown could have been automatically charged with this and went to jail. There's a reason he wasn't charged with sharing a link like he originally was charged with, because there was no law. Obama is now proposing the law. He has written the legislation. He is putting it up for Congress and the Senate to vote. That's why during his State of the Union address, he said himself, we need to protect our children from cybersecurity. In translation, what he really said, we're going to make sure if anyone releases any information compromising of the government and corporations, if anyone does their job and does investigative reporting with sources and whistleblowers from the inside, you will go to jail. You will go to jail if you share a password. You will go to jail if you share a link. You will go to jail if you click on a link, according to Obama's new law, which is creating an online internet police state. Obama is codifying this. We already see the ramifications of what happened to Barrett Brown, and it's sickening to see freedom of speech, freedom of the press being utterly destroyed today in this landmark case that just broke right now. Share this video with your friends, because the freedom of online freedom, the future of having and being able to share information and expose government misdoings, is being destroyed right now in front of our very eyes. And yet the mainstream media is talking about a deflated freaking football. Share this video with your friends. Get it out there to everybody so we see exactly what's happening with the federal government prosecuting people who want to keep you informed.
Okay. Now, I think a lot of this has a bigger role. I think that they are ready to clamp down on the internet, on reporting, because they're getting ready for some type of collapse, whether it be a bubble popping or basically just allowing it to collapse. And there was one that AMTV put out, Christopher Green, that was kind of interesting. This was ECB QE assures economic collapse in 2015. Now, I don't know that it would happen in 2015, but I think we definitely are going to see a shift in 2015. It won't be a quick collapse. I don't think. I think it's going to be a slow collapse within, the next 10 years. But here we go.
Check out our sponsor, ProPureUSA.com. That's ProPureUSA.com, the leading innovator in water filtration systems. Get all of your water filters at ProPureUSA.com. Click the link below right now. Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're tuning into AMTV, Alternative Media Television. So we had a massive stimulus announced in Europe, courtesy of Mario Drag Queen. A massive quantitative easing program into infinity. And that's not an exaggeration. It is open-ended, according to Mario Drag Queen. They're just going to buy their own shit. They're going to buy their own bonds into infinity, forever. They're going to sell out Europeans and their children and their children's 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 children, just like they've done here in the United States of America, and just watch all of these economies implode long-term for a little short-term fakery, for a little short-term gains. So the same billionaires in Davos right now that have helped to engineer quantitative easing to infinity to bail out the same institutions and banks that made them rich, that never take a loss, by the way, because again, the financial markets aren't allowed to move to the negative anymore. They can only have consistent growth. They can only move in a straight line, parabolically. The markets in the not just here in the United States, but around the world can never go down, according to these whores. And that's exactly what Mario Drag Queen just showed us. Just like whore Janet Yellen, which really are the prostitutes of the New World Order, sucking off these elite in Davos. Again, this has nothing to do with the benefit of the people. Again, what's so bad with deflation? Is any European going to complain that their prices have declined? That the milk and eggs that they buy at the store aren't as expensive? That oil prices are lower? Of course not. I mean, if prices are dropping, that's actually a good thing for Europeans. That's actually a good thing for Americans. But it's a bad thing for the central banks because, again, they're super leveraged. They've bought their own debt. We have an $18 trillion plus national debt here in the United States. We have over $4.5 trillion on the Federal Reserve's balance sheet. They've got to roll this over into infinity. It's exactly why they need 0% interest rates. It's exactly why the deposit rate in Europe is negative, because they need to continue the Ponzi scheme. I mean, this is Bernie Madoff times a gazillion. It's absolutely insane. And again, it's not going to end well. It's going to end in war. It's going to end in utter catastrophe for the global economy. It's going to crash global financial markets at some point, and it's going to make 2008 look like a church picnic. Note, and I've spoken about this many times, that the Swiss bank surprised and depegged itself from the euro. The same thing's going to happen to the U.S. dollar, where we're going to wake up, average Americans are going to wake up, and we're going to find that the Chinese have moved from a managed float to the dollar to a free float. And all of a sudden, our dollars here in the United States in our pocket will be burning a hole in our wallet. We're going to have 30% depreciation, 50% depreciation, maybe 100% depreciation overnight because of these policies, because of the QE into infinity. I mean, it's literally open-ended. I think they're buying some $70 billion a month into infinity, at least they say, until I believe the September of 2016. But of course, we know they're going to extend it. It's all about extending and pretending. Just like they're going to have QE4 here in the United States. I would argue they already had it. And we could also argue that QE in Europe is QE4 because it's riding the coattails of the other stimulative policies and shenanigans that we've had here in the United States. So this is extremely drastic. And all we got for $1 trillion plus in new stimulus, $1 trillion, is 100 points up on the Dow. That's it, because it's already baked into the pie. Wall Street's already expecting it. It's already built in to the scam. Again, Bernie Madoff is in federal pound-me-in-the-ass prison, and all these bankers and international elite that have orchestrated the greatest crimes in world history just hang out at $40,000 a ticket. That's how much it costs to attend this event. to just be a ticket holder in Davos. 40 grand for a couple days so they can fight climate change as they're flying their private jets into Davos. I mean, it's the biggest scam that we've ever seen in the history of the world. And again, it's the people that are going to pay the price. Commodities are collapsing. Oil is collapsing. We still have deflation, even though there's been quantitative easing to infinity. And as I just pointed out, deflation isn't necessarily a bad thing for the people. It just means everything's cheaper for you and your family. It means you eat a little bit easier. It means you fill up your gas tank a little bit easier. But you see, the elite can't have it because it doesn't allow them to continue this debt Ponzi scheme into infinity. It's a joke. I mean, it's laughable. If any of you have actually studied economics or finance like I have, there are no fundamentals to the market anymore. There are no fundamentals. You don't look at balance sheets. You don't look at cash flow statements. You just look to the Federal Reserve and see what whore policies they're instituting. You just look into the ECB directly and Mario Drag Queen, and you just look to see who he's blowing at that given moment. And that tells you what the market's going to do. So as long as Mario Drag Queen and Janet Yellen, I can barely pronounce her name, are sucking off the New World Order, you're going to have this fakery. You're going to have these shenanigans. You can be assured of more conflict. You can be assured of a bigger war than what we experienced during World War II. You can be assured of economic collapse. It is so bad. It is so catastrophic. And these people's party and think that things are okay when they're not. I'm Christopher Green. Get this video out everywhere. Make it viral. Hard hitting it in your face. And click the link below to support our sponsor.
Okay. Now, I don't believe they're going to do it that quick. But I do believe that a world war, is only brewing. I think this can lead to a world war, but I think time it happens, I don't think America will be in the right position. I already think we're already in the wrong position. Because we don't have any true we have a lot of assets as a military, as the United States of America, the military. The assets are there, except they're not here. They're everywhere else. So the whole, defending our freedom, no, you're actually putting our freedom in jeopardy if that's what you were trying to do by being so far away all the time when there is no country fighting us. But while you're over there supposedly fighting for our freedom, we're here and having our freedoms attacked by our government. And we have more expectations of the United Nations marching around, and alongside maybe National Guard ran by the military, not the governors, unless it's a FEMA region type situation. But I already see signs of where we're going. And I think that we're going to make a lot of the mistakes Europe did, but we're going to be in worse positions when we do it. Therefore, we're going to lose out even more and faster. There's one I have. Let me find it here. This one out of the Economic Collapse blog.com. And this one's titled, "This is exactly how markets behave right before they crash." When the stock market starts to behave like a roller coaster, that's a sign that a major move to the downside is right around the corner. As I have stated repeatedly, when the market is very calm, it tends to go up. But when the waters start getting really choppy, that is a clear indication that stocks are about to plummet. In early 2015, volatility has returned to Wall Street in a big way. At one point on Tuesday, the Dow was up more than 300 points, but then the bottom dropped out. From the peak on Tuesday, the Dow plunged nearly 700 points in less than 30 hours before recovering more than 100 points at the end of the day. The Dow has now experienced the longest losing streak that we have seen in 3 months, but that is not that big of a deal. Of much greater concern is the huge price swing that we have been seeing. Remember, the 3 largest single-day stock market increases in history were right in the middle of the financial crisis of 2008. So stocks go up 400 points tomorrow. That's not a good sign. What we really need is a string of days when the stocks move less than 100 points in either direction. If stocks keep making dramatic moves up and dramatic move down, history tells us that it's only a matter of time before they collapse. Any student of stock market history knows that we are witnessing right now is exactly how stock markets behave right before they crash. Examine the chart below very carefully, and this again is at the Economic Collapse blog.com. It is a chart of the CBOE volatility index from 2006 to 2008. As you can see, volatility was very low as stock soared during 2006. Then things started to get a bit choppy in 2007, and investors should have recognized this as a warning sign. Finally, you can see that the VIX absolutely skyrocketed during the financial crisis of 2008. Looking back, it seems so obvious, so why aren't more people alarmed this time around? As CNN is reporting, the VIX is up almost 20% so far in 2015. Volatility has returned with a vengeance. This January, the Dow has been moving up and down by at least 100 points nearly every day this year. CNN Money's Fear and Greed Index is showing signs of extreme fear again, and a volatility gauge known as the VIX, which is one of the components in our index, is up nearly 20% so far this year, and that was from CNN. Meanwhile, there are lots of other signs of trouble in the horizon as well. For example, the price of copper got absolutely hammered on Wednesday. As I write this, it has fallen more than 5% and has not been this low in more than 5 years. In financial circles, it is referred to as Dr. Copper because it is such a valuable indicator regarding where the global economy is headed next. For example, in 2008, the price of copper was so close, was close to $4, being before plummeting below $1.50 by the end of that year as the global financial system fell apart. Now the price of copper is plunging again, and many analysts are becoming extremely concerned. And remember, copper falls and then it does go back up, but at a slow rate. It's not like gold or silver, but it does always contain some type of value. It's used in a lot of things. So, of course, what we've seen after, one thing at least I've seen after 2008 was scrappers. Scrapping became just extremely overrun with people doing it to the point that theft was very common. And where did all that go? Well, that was going overseas. They were taking just complete trainloads of scrap and shipping it out to shipyards to be sent overseas. Some of it probably did end up here domestically, but I know a lot of it was going to be shipped out. And I had a gentleman at one of the places tell me that. And when the price plummets, it's one of those things that gold and silver, they're going to be what's valuable. And a lot of people are not going to have it. But a complete collapse, a complete just meltdown, gold and silver are only going to be valuable for probably foreign transfers of goods. So yeah, there's still going to be value, but I'll tell you what, people that had gold, that's when they were selling it because, well, gold was worth some money and they were out of a job. So a lot of people I know that had gold don't have it anymore, and that's kind of sad. I'm going to read a little bit further on here. Meanwhile, the recession, some call it a depression in Europe, continues to get even worse, and the euro continues to plunge. On Wednesday, the euro declined to the lowest level that we have seen in 9 years, and Goldman Sachs is now saying that the euro and the U.S. dollar could be at partly by the end of the or be at parity by the end of next year. That is amazing considering the fact that it took $1.60 to get €1 back in July 2008. Personally, I am fully convinced that Goldman Sachs is right on this one. I believe that the euro is going to all-time lows that we have never seen before, and this is going to create massive problems for the Eurozone. With all these signs of trouble out there, the smart money is rapidly pulling their money out of stocks and putting it into government bonds. This usually happens when a crisis is looming. It's called a flight to safety, and it pushes government bond yields down. On Wednesday, the yield of 10-year U.S. Treasury fell beneath the important 1.8% barrier. We will probably see it go even lower in the months ahead. As the rest of the world economy crumbles, the remainder of the globe is looking to America to be the rock in the storm. For example, the following quote that I found today comes from a British news source. The global economy is running on a single engine, the American one. The World Bank's chief economist, Kaushik Basu, said this does not make for a rosy outlook for the world. Well, they may not want to rely on us too much because there are plenty of signs that our economy is slowing down too. For example, we learned today that December retail sales were down 0.9% from a year ago, and this is being called an unmitigated disaster Americans were supposed to be taking the money that they were saving on gasoline and spending it, but that apparently is not happening. Back on October 29th, I wrote an article entitled From This Day Forward, We Will Watch How the Stock Markets Perform Without the Fed's Monetary Heroin. In that article, I warned that the end of quantitative easing could have dire consequences on the financial system as bubbles created by the Fed began to burst. And that is precisely what is happening. In fact, many analysts are now purporting that the end of QE as the exact moment when our current troubles began for insistence. Check out the excerpt from CNBC article that was published on Wednesday. So stuff happens when QE ends, said Peter Brokvar, chief market analyst at the Lindsay Group. It's no coincidence that the market started going into a higher volatility mode. It's no coincidence that the decline in commodity prices accelerated. It's no coincidence that yield curve started flattening when QE ended. Indeed, the increase in volatility and its effect on prices across the capital market spectrum was closely tied to the Fed ending the third round of QE in October. We are moving into a time of great change for Wall Street and the global economy as a whole. If we continue to see tremendous amount of volatility, history tells us that it's only a matter of time before the markets implode. Hopefully you will be ready when that happens. Again, that's from the economiccollapseblog.com. They've been a pretty good source of information. Excuse me there. This is something that I've seen coming around the corner, and what I've seen is basically now being proven right. Let's see. Let me pull something up here. Okay. If you look around at what the stock market's doing, when it comes to things like gold and silver, you have to be someone that follows this. Now, the whole bubble collapsing type situation usually affects across the board. It will affect across the board. And when I say that, yeah, I mean gold and silver. But signs also tell you what's coming before. And I want to kind of go into what I mean by that. If we look at, let's say, an ounce of silver. A month ago, you could get an ounce of silver for around $15. $15 for an ounce of silver. Have any idea at what you can buy it right now? Around 19 and a half. That's what it's being sold for, and that's a pretty good price on it. Actually, I've seen where a lot of local places are now starting to sell it for about $25 an ounce. And they're not making shy of that. They're making some money off of it now, but in the long run, they know what it's going to be worth. But if you look at stock markets like gold and silver and platinum, they're down. Why is that? Well, because they're tied into stocks through commodities. They're down. They've been bouncing back and forth. So silver, 1835 right now. That's down 0.04. Selling for about $1 more at the least. These are good deals that I get. So, it's around $1 that it's upcharged, and like I said, a lot of places 25. And that's because they literally know. They understand the market, because that's how they understand gold and silver. And they're usually a little bit of free market type people that believe in tangible assets like gold and silver. So they understand it a lot more than people think. And I buy my metals from Amagi Metals, and I partnered up with them. And like I said before, I'd rather not get donations. I'd rather people buy things that they need to help prepare themselves for any type of situation. And that's why I partnered up with Amagi Metals. These are people I personally deal with, great customer service. And like I said, $1 above the market price for their silver. That's an awesome deal. And they have insured shipping, so it ensures that metal, whether it gets to your house or not, you will be paid for it. Amagi Metals, you can help support Anti-Tyranny News and this broadcast by going to antityrannynews.com/metal, and it will take you straight to Amagi Metals. And any of your purchases, they toss us, a couple of pennies here and there to help support the broadcast and operating costs here. And, when we see the economy doing what it's doing, I don't know if our economy ever got healed up enough. I know it didn't get healed. It did not ever come back to what it was. But I don't even know if it got ahead enough to be able to survive another collapse. And I think the financial system is what most of us have really been looking at. That and the potential for world war, because, well, we're always at war, so it's always something that is definitely in the peripheral all the time. But I really believe in gold and silver, but I don't always put all my eggs in one basket. One thing I want to point out is something that kind of amazes me, that Bitcoin, through everything that's going on, has been holding its price. It's not bouncing up and down. It's not going crazy. If you had that money there, it's still there. But if our dollar drops, you're either going to have to trade it for gold and silver, or you're going to have to trade it for items. When the bubble finally collapses, that's when you're going to see, well, anybody with Bitcoin is going to look at you with your Federal Reserve notes and go, It's going to take a lot more of those to get a Bitcoin. Right now, it's around 228. And if you are someone that has Bitcoin and you might have too many eggs in one basket and you want to buy gold and silver, Magia Metals again does accept Bitcoin for gold and silver. So go to antityrannynews.com/metal and check them out. Another store I would like you to go visit is the UCY store, ucy.tv. Click on the UCY store tab. You will be shopping through Amazon, getting the great deals that you always get through Amazon, but at the same time, you'll also be helping support the broadcasting network here at ucy.tv that gives me and the other great hosts here on UCY a platform to get our opinions and our thoughts out and spread the news and talk about liberty, truth, and freedom. And it's given to us free of charge, so we always urge people to support the network as much as they can. And, Amazon has a great list. Well, UCY took the time to find gear for prepping, whether it be regular prepping or even camping, but also things like radiation protection. And you don't find collections of items so centered on prepping and, going out of their way to find all these items and put them on a page makes it really convenient for people to find what they need to prepare for any type of disaster. And whether it be an economic collapse, natural disaster, you really need to prepare yourself and always have backup plans, because you never know what will happen until it does. So go check them out, ucy.tv, and click the UCY store tab. I've been watching everything go on, and I also work in a factory on weekends. That helps support this network too. And I've seen a slowdown. It hasn't completely slowed down, but I'm one of those people that I see the small effects, and it's one of those things that I think it's going to happen in steps, and I think time people do realize it, the majority of the people, I believe it's going to be too late. I don't see it playing out in favor for the everyday person. I really don't. I think we're in for a little bit of hurt. And what do we usually see when we start seeing economic collapses happen? War. War. That's always the answer for economic collapse. And I definitely think that's very, very, very possible in the current system we're in, that there's a lot of volatility throughout the world. Americans are kind of caught in the middle because of what our government does. And I also want to kind of get into that and our troops and things like that, and really get a little deeper into some stuff. I want to play something first, though, from We Are Change. The West and Ukraine preparing for war with Russia.
In the United States, the mainstream media showed their utter disregard for humanity, society, and your intelligence by obsessing over a deflated ball, making it the major focal point of every front page of the news and also every news segment all across the United States. Meanwhile, globally, internationally, Ukraine is preparing for a full-out war with Russia. Now, if you care about news that matters geopolitically, if you want to know why gold has been going up in its price, if you want to know what's really happening that's really important, you're on the right video. Now, we're going to break down in this video what's happening in Ukraine. Obviously, there's been many conflicts in Ukraine ever since there was a ceasefire between the pro-Russian rebels and the Ukrainian government. 1,400 people have died. In the recent days, tensions have escalated. Many innocent people have been killed, and fighting has intensified between rebels and the Ukrainian government. Now, this matters geopolitically because there's a lot of other forces, like the United States, like the European Union, and NATO, also positioning itself against Russia. Now, this tension has escalated, and many people on the alternative media side and also the pro-Russian side are saying that this is a way to get Russia into war. They're saying this because ever since the tensions have escalated in Donetsk between the rebels and the Ukrainian military, Vladimir Putin has come out and offered a peace treaty between the pro-separatist rebels and the Ukrainian military. The Ukrainian government, Petro Poroshenko, the president of Ukraine, has denied that peace treaty. He has chosen to call for more sanctions, and he has said that there's 9,000 troops in Ukraine right now fighting against the Ukrainian government. Does he offer proof of his claim that there's 9,000 troops? Does he offer proof that Russian military and soldiers and arms are crossing the border? He has yet to do so, and he has not done that in any way, shape, or form. He is calling for support by the European Union, which has just passed legislation that makes it legal for the European Union countries to actually give military aid, weapons to the Ukrainian army. So here we see Ukraine denounce the peace treaty. You see them calling for more sanctions on Russia. You also see them saying that there's 9,000 troops in Ukraine without any proof. And of course, Russia is answering back saying that's complete rubbish because there is no proof. And they're also at the same time announcing a mass conscription. And if you don't know what conscription is, it's when the government is trying to get as many people into the military as they can. And Petro Poroshenko is trying to get 50,000 people to sign up for the military in Ukraine, give them 10 to 15 days of combat training, and send them to the front, which is right now the Donetsk airport. And many people are saying this is what he's doing to prepare for continental war with Russia. He's amassing the troops. He's spreading propaganda. He's denying peace treaties. And he's calling for support by NATO, the European Union, and the United States to get involved in the conflict. Now, why is Petro Poroshenko doing this when he put his country in such a horrible position? There's a WikiLeaks cable that came out that actually proved that the current president of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko, is in Washington's pocket. In leaked diplomatic cables, it came out that he has been working for the United States since 2006 and that he's very corrupt. This is the man escalating tensions between the United States and Russia, leaving many Russian diplomats, many Russian representatives to say you're leaving Russia with no options except to get ready for war. And that's exactly what Russia's doing, and they're ordering tests of their nuclear missiles. And this is within the last few days. They're also preparing economically by coming closer with China, and they're also buying up a lot of gold. That's why gold prices have been going up worldwide. Because they know with the sanctions, with the cheap oil prices, that there could be a global currency collapse. And that's why all their alternative resources like gold are going back up. Something you won't hear from the mainstream media. Many people say, vote with your dollar. I say, vote with your attention. If you found this video helpful or insightful, share this with your friends. Like this video. comment if you have any relevant information that you want me to share, that you want me to learn about in this conflict. But we see what's happening geopolitically. We see how the Ukrainian president, Petro Poroshenko, is denying this peace treaty, making all these claims about Russia with no proof and no evidence, is preparing his troops for war, is trying to amass more soldiers, and Russia is saying, bring it, and showing their military prowess, their military might, by amassing their forces. Something, I think, a little bit more important than a deflated ball. Don't forget to vote with your attention and subscribe to this channel. We're going to have a lot more videos coming your way about real issues that matter, unlike a stupid, deflated fucking football.
Anybody want to talk about a deflated football? No. Okay. It's one of those things that when you look at everything going on, don't only look at the U.S. When you have a lot of the runners up for world power buying up all the gold, we know that taking gold out of our currency is what helped kill the currency here in America. Remember, when a dime was made out of a dime, or was made out of silver, that dime could buy you a gallon of gas. That same amount of silver can still buy you a gallon of gas. And with the price of gas down, and silver and gold still went up. Why is it going up? Well, that's because guess what's going up now? Oil prices. And I hear there was one article, I can't even remember where it came from, but it was talking about now that the king of Saudi Arabia and we have a new king in charge, oil prices are going back up. They were going up before the king died. They're going up because of our current oil fracking here in America. We invested a lot of stuff into fracking. At the same time, we have other companies from other countries running our oil rigs off our coast for the most part. But yeah, fracking is not going to pay off for us because they're going to make sure of it. The price is going up is because I already seen an article about some of the lower guys are now being kind of, let off of these oil rigs that we have doing all this fracking just to ease any pain that could come from the lower oil prices. No, because they know it's coming. They're going to try to get what they can now. And if that means working a little harder, letting off a couple of the little guys, and being able to pocket more of the money, they're going to do it while they can. We're going to see oil prices probably start reaching $3 again. I would theorize we'll probably see $3 within the next 2 to 3 months. If that, it could happen later, it could happen sooner. That's just kind of my personal opinion on where it's going. Um, and that's just me basing it off of what metal prices are doing, oil prices, the stock market, and other currencies around the world. And in that one article from Economic Collapse, I read it kind of talked about the euro for a split second, but they have a new one up. This is the beginning of the end for the euro. The long anticipated collapse of the euro is here. When European Central Bank President Mario Draghi unveiled an open-ended quantitative easing program worth at least 60 billion euros a month on Thursday, stocks soared, but the euro plummeted like a rock. It hit an 11-year low of $1.13, and many analysts believe that is going much, much lower than this. The speed at which the euro has been falling in recent months has been absolutely stunning. Less than a year ago, it was hovering around $1.40. But since that time, the crippling economic problems in southern Europe have gone from bad to worse, and no amount of money printing is going to avert the financial nightmare that is slowly unfolding right before our eyes. Yes, there may be some temporary euphoria for a few days, but it is important to remember that reckless money printing worked for the Weimar Republic for a little while too before it turned into a utter disaster. Now that the ECB has decided to go this route, it is essentially out of ammunition. The only thing that it could potentially do beyond this to print even larger quantities of money. As the global financial crisis begins to unfold over the next couple of years, the ECB is pretty much going to be powerless to do anything about it. Over the next couple of months, we can expect the euro to continue to head toward partly with the US dollar, and eventually it is going to go to all-time lows. Meanwhile, the future of the eurozone itself is very much in doubt. If it does break up, the elite of Europe will probably try to put it back together in some sort of new configuration, but the damage will already have been done. Over the next 18 months, the European Central Bank will create more than €1 trillion out of thin air and will use that money to buy debt. The following is how the new QE program for Europe was described by the Telegraph. The combined monthly purchases of public and private sector securities will amount to 60 billion euros, said Mr. Draghi at a press conference following a meeting of the ECB's governing council. They are intended to be carried out until end September 2016 and will, in any case, be conducted until we see a sustained adjustment in the path of inflation, he added, meaning the package will amount to at least 1.1 trillion. Mr. Draghi's package of asset purchases, including bonds issued by national governments and EU institutions such as the European Commission, is intended to boost the Eurozone flagging economy and to ward off the spectra of deflation. When you print more money, you drive down the value of currency, and the euro has already been crashing for months, as you can see from the chart below. And it starts off, let me see here, around January and February, the Eurozone to the US dollar, it would take about $1.39, $1.38. And what you see in this is it's just up, down, up, down, up, down, just crazy. And it goes up to almost about $1.39, $1.40 by the middle of the year, by the middle of 2014. But by the first of this year, it's down to almost $1.15. It went down to $1.13. So that it just plummets. I mean, completely plummets. And we're going to see the same thing happen here. That's why you really need to start putting money into other assets that might better protect you. So I would definitely encourage people to do that. You can read the rest of that at the economiccollapseblog.com. The economiccollapseblog.com. Oh yeah, and this is the beginning of the end for the euro is the title of that. So definitely go read the rest of that. It's definitely important because the Europe and the United States are so intertwined, definitely economically, that it's kind of getting scary. It really is. Excuse me. Okay. I'm going to kind of get into some other news. This one from Ben Swan, City Taxi Commissioner. Abolished taxi commission regulations to level playing field for Uber taxis. In cities across the United States, rideshare services have exploded to prominence, offering cheap rides to those in need of transportation and decent paying jobs for to individuals struggling to find work. However, the business models behind providers like Uber and Lyft frequently come into conflict with antiquated livery regulations, resulting in political fights between taxi drivers and rideshare companies. The taxi drivers complaining that rideshare services are sidestepping the fees and regulatory costs that they have to pay. The political infighting has resulted in extreme outcomes in some cases, such as cities threatening to arrest or fine rideshare drivers if providers do not reshape their business models to fit regulations designed before mobile app-based businesses could have been imagined. According to Seacoast Online, the Portsmouth, New Hampshire Taxi Commission decided on Wednesday at a meeting to approach this problem in a new way by ditching the existing livery regulatory scheme entirely and replacing it with a new one aimed at evening the playing field between taxi drivers and rideshare providers. In fact, not only did the Taxi Commission vote to send a memo recommending that the City Council abandon its taxi medallion system inspections, and fare regulations, but the commissioner offering the proposal, Larry Cataldo, recommended that the taxi commission itself be disbanded entirely 6 months after the changes go into effect. Instead, the commission suggested that the city council adopt a new, simpler regulatory system to accommodate the desperate business models of taxi and rideshare companies. The new rules would require all drivers to register with the city to provide proof that they are carrying at least $300,000 worth of commercial insurance coverage. Registered drivers would also have to sign a code of conduct agreement and face criminal background checks for which they would be charged a fee. Uber drivers would be offered a grace period during which time they could continue working to give them an opportunity to acclimate to the new regulations. The above embedded video contains footage provided by the city of Portsmouth of a prior January 14th meeting of the Taxi Commission, at which commissioners listened to debates between taxi and Uber drivers before coming up with Wednesday's proposal. Some local taxi drivers are angry about the proposed changes and are calling for Uber to be banned. Portsmouth taxi operator Merle White said in protest at Wednesday's Taxi Commission meeting, "Maybe it'll take a lawsuit to make you do your job, and maybe I'll be the moron to do it." Other taxi drivers at the meeting also protested. John Polero offered to sign on to Merle White's lawsuit, and Scott Gerardo called for Taxi Commissioner Larry Cataldo to resign. Seacoast Online reported today that taxi driver John Polero has made good on his promise by retaining attorney Joe Palea and plans to file suit against the city if it does not serve a cease and desist order to Uber drivers. I think someone should make a better Uber to make it harder for. See, the problem is that these taxi drivers are, well, you guys are idiots. Not meaning that you might not be knowledgeable or smart about things. But when it comes to this, you guys are idiots. We pay the regulations. We do all this. Why would you allow them not to? Are you stupid? Become an Uber driver. The Uber or the taxi companies start teaming up with Uber. Start trying to let me see, how do we put it? Do without the regulations too, where you don't have to pay to basically be investigated just for you to do your job. No, call for regulation. No, we want It's a very misguided direction that they're going, and that's kind of sad. And even though I don't think Cataldo goes far enough, I think it's a step in the right direction. I really do. But it don't go far enough. But we'll see what goes on with this. Okay. Here's something I do want to cover. And this is someone I definitely. This is a guy that should scare a lot of people, but not scare them into submission, but scare them into action. This is a company you all know. This coming out of HollywoodReporter.com. Google chairman Eric Schmidt, the internet will disappear. Google executive chairman Eric Schmidt on Thursday predicted the end of the internet as we know it. At the end of a panel at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, where his comments were webcast, he was asked for his prediction on the future of the web. I will answer very simply that the internet will disappear, Schmidt said. There will be so many IP addresses, so many devices, sensors, things that you are wearing, things that you are interacting with, that you won't even sense it, he explained. It will be a part of your presence all the time. Imagine you walk into a room and the room is dynamic. And with your permission and all of that, I like how it goes, and with your permission and all of that, you are interacting with the things going on in the room, concluded Schmidt. A highly personalized, highly interactive, and very interesting world emerges. The panel, entitled The Future of the Digital Economy, also featured Facebook COO Sheryl Sandberg and others. Earlier in the debate, Schmidt discussed the issue of market dominance. The European Union has been looking at Google's search market dominance in a long-running antitrust case, and the European Parliament late last year even called for a breakup. You now see so many strong tech platforms coming, and you are seeing a reordering and future reordering of dominance or leaders or whatever term you want to use because of the rise of the apps on the smartphone, Schmidt said. Thursday, all bets are off at this point as to what the smartphone app infrastructure is going to look like as a whole new set of players emerges to power smartphones, which are nothing but supercomputers, the Google chairman argued. I view that as a completely open market at this point. Asked about his recent trip to North Korea, Schmidt said the country has many internet connections through data phones, but there is no roaming and web usage is heavily supervised, Schmidt said. It's very much surveillance of use, which he said was not good for the country and others. Sandberg and Schmidt lauded the internet as an important way to give more people in the world a voice. Currently, only 40% of people have internet access. The Facebook COO said that any growth in reach helps extend people's voice and increase economic opportunity. I'm a huge optimist, she said about her outlook for the industry. Imagine what we can do once the world gets to 50%, 60%, and move in terms of internet penetration. She cited women as being among the beneficiaries, saying the internet narrows divides. Schmidt similarly said that broadband can address governance issues, information needs, personal issues, women's empowerment needs, and education issues. The internet is the greatest empowerment of citizens in many years, he said. Suddenly, citizens have a voice, they can be heard. Now, I want to kind of cover a little bit of this because you have Google and you have Facebook talking about, people's voices. They take a conscious effort to censor people. They did the censoring with the Ron Paul. You can claim that, well, some of it was, teams of people. The amount of Ron Paul stuff that was taken off, whether it be a group of their employees or from the top up, or the top down, it's one of those things that it came from Facebook. Facebook censored. And Google plays a lot of tricks when it comes to that, changing their algorithm to keep news sites that they don't like. And I keep going back to when Smith was on the Glenn Beck program. And that was one I had to tune in because I really wanted to hear these two people from Google. And the arrogance of Schmidt particularly proves why we don't want Google and companies like Facebook so involved in every part of the tech. Whether it be your smart fridge, your smart meter thermostats, your computers, your internet access. You have to understand they're not just, providing a search engine. Oh, and by the way, Google, they kind of own Boston Dynamics, which is contracted by the government, makes all those artificial intelligence type robots and things. Yeah. So, by the way, your stolen money, your so-called tax money, which is just money that they take, and if you don't pay the mob boss, which is government, IRS, Federal Reserve, whoever gets the money in the end, they'll come to your house with guns, basically. So, or they'll take your money before you get it if you work somewhere. If you're self-employed, they'll just come get you. You'll become slave labor in a prison. They'll benefit off of you because the prison will help them out. So it's one of those things that I was listening to him speak on Glenn Beck, and Glenn Beck was like, well, what if you guys have all this control and you start blocking websites? Well, we don't do that because which is BS, but we're not that type of people. But what it can't happen because we're not that type of people. He has an agenda. He has a personal agenda. And when you have the ability to choose what's accessible and what's not, which they have that, they're the ones that will help governments. Facebook is ones that will help governments censor the speech. Well, it allows us to work it. Well, a concentration camp will give me a job. I should go work. No. What you do is you provide something that maybe the government has a problem controlling. That's how you get freedom, and you don't have control. That's one thing, a lot of people don't understand about Bitcoin is there's no one central control of Bitcoin. No one has control over it. No one. It only so many can be made. There's no central manipulation over it. And that's a problem with the world. We have central powers controlling sections of the world. Basically, warlords. When they're not warlording, they're slaving, treating the rest of their people as slaves. We are their peasants in their eyes. Okay, I think I'm going to, let's see what kind of time we got here. Let me see how long this our clip was. Okay. Get back to it here. Now, I posted something about Dave Herman, and that this happened actually pretty close to where I am here in Indiana. Dave Herman, MMA fighter, and he was recently arrested. I have one here from Adam Kokesh. I'm going to play this real quick before we get too far in the broadcast. It's about a 12-minute clip. And this is a response. Dave Herman, on recent arrest, police charged me with crimes they committed.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Adam Kokesh. I'm joined tonight by Skype by Dave and Madeline Herman and their son, Leo. You might know them from our recent video in which Dave was tased by police officers at a traffic stop in a, let's just say, highly unnecessary and aggressive fashion. And fortunately, Madeline was able to contact me. We were able to get that video up. And we've had thousands of people now calling the DeKalb County Prosecutor's Office to demand Dave's release. And he was in jail for a little over a day. They were going to try to hold him longer, but thanks to your calls, he is now out and able to talk to us. Unfortunately, he's still facing 3 felony charges as a result of this incident and still needs your support. So, Dave, it's an honor to get to talk to you this way. You're really lucky to have a woman like Madeline, who I've worked with before, standing up for you and making this happen and making sure that, you know, not just all of your fans, but the freedom community and the MMA community we're behind you in this. So why don't you tell us about, where you're at and where you're feeling now with the situation?
Well, right now we're at looking for an attorney. I guess is our next step. After everything that happened, I guess I just wish there was somebody out there to keep dangerous people like this off the streets. You know, there was only somebody could keep dangerous, violent individuals like this off our streets.
There was some group or
so
some.
This wouldn't happen. I feel like maybe the world would be a safer, better place. It's weird.
Well, I'm really glad that we were able to apply modern activism tactics to at least bring that pressure to bear. About the situation, there's some confusion about this, and it's really sad to see in some of the sports reporting that I've read about this that some people are taking the cops at their word about how this transpired. And you know that they've lied in the police reports and that the video evidence directly contradicts that. What were you expecting to happen at this traffic stop? What surprised you? And how do you feel towards what the cops did at this point?
I was not expecting that at all. I was hoping to just be like, hey guys, tell them what's up, having car trouble. Hopefully they would help me and make sure I get home safely. Was what I was hoping for, if in fact they were police officers, which I still have yet to see an ID, but whatever.
So what are the charges that you're facing now?
I'm facing 3 felony counts and 1 Class A misdemeanor. Two of the counts are assault on police officers. 1 of the counts is resisting arrest with a vehicle. 1 of the counts is endangering a dependent. All of those things did in fact happen. I was physically assaulted, I was verbally assaulted, and then the police endangered the life and health of my child. And then they proceeded to charge me with all of the things they did to me. that's pretty ballsy. But
now, being lucky enough to be married to Madeline, and I don't know how you pulled that off.
Sure.
Can I just say, did you see the way he defended us? You're calling me lucky.
And he's I'm sure you're not surprised by this, that you know, you pay attention to the news, you understand the police state that we live in. Was there some shock in seeing this personally? Have you never experienced anything like this?
I was pretty shocked at first. I'm really hoping to get the video from the gas station. The lady working at the gas station, my wife talked to, she said she saw the whole thing. The police were completely out of line, and that they do have video surveillance of it. Although later, after the fact, I heard maybe the police got to him and deleted it.
I spoke to the local news channel, and they said, they said, now it looks like you have the only video evidence. And I said, well, at the gas station we were at, the attendant told me I could call the manager and request it. And I called, and they said they wouldn't give it to me unless I had a court order. They really didn't want to be involved in this and weren't too thrilled that it happened on their property. And he said, no, I talked to the police, and they called. They said that there was just no video evidence at the BP. Their cameras were off.
Well, I think
it's like the police cameras were accidental.
Yeah, and for those of you that haven't seen the video yet, we'll link to it in the description, along with some other things. But it's very clear here that at the point at which you got tased was actually after you had decided to completely submit. And I'm not saying that resistance is justified or not, but you were resisting the commands peacefully, calmly, asking for identification, even put your hands up. And it was the point at which he turned away from the cops as they were asking to comply with their orders that they decided to tase you. And I think you don't have anything to worry about for any other sources of video. That one's out there. It's pretty clear. It's on the internet. It's not going away. And these cops can't fully escape accountability for what they did. And, I'm excited to see that we have that now, and we have this technology. But a lot of people think that cops having it is what's going to save us, is what's going to provide accountability. And there is something really, really important about this story for everyone to understand, which is that the cops had a body camera. The cop that was actually standing.
Body cameras, dash cameras.
And none of them were working. None of them were working at that point. They just didn't have them rolling. So
they looked like, I forgot my homework.
Yeah, basically. So the accountability requires more than the technology. It requires action. It requires people to be engaged. It requires people to call and support someone when they get in a bind, when they're victimized by government. So, Dave, Madeline, I mean, what lessons do you want your fans, your supporters to take away from this in terms of how to fight back against the police state?
First of all, avoid them. Second of all, have a camera ready. I was just completely fortunate to have the iPad sitting on top of the diaper bag. That is generally not the case. So yeah, just be prepared for these kind of things. And, you are a human being. Demand respect. They will not allow you to speak or talk to them in that way. Why should they?
You should never talk to anyone in that way.
Yeah. Why should they be allowed to talk to you in that way? And then, have good friends in media.
Thank you, Adam.
Hey, it's an honor to be able to help anyone when they're in a situation like this. And I hope that people know, as Madeline reached out to me, if anybody else is in such a situation, if it's not me, someone else with a platform or a good YouTube channel who can get the information out, who can put it together in a constructive way. And I want to talk to you right now about what we've got going on moving forward with Dave's trial, because he has a pretrial hearing coming up on March 25th, and they have a GoFundMe campaign set up right now as a legal support fund. Just to be clear, it's not a legal defense fund.
It's not a legal support fund. It's a Dave Herman support.
It's just support, because technically it's not for legal support because that's not allowed on GoFundMe.
Well, there are a lot of ways that someone going through something like this, and I would know from experience, incurs a lot of personal expenses outside of the official ones that are imposed by government. And being government means never having to say you're sorry. And as you pointed out earlier, Dave, the lack of remorse from these cops, that it's one thing, like you expect the behavior, but the lack of remorse every single time is stunning and really dismaying. And you've lost, the cost of all the time that you've already put into this, spent in jail, making friends and having fun with the guards from what I hear. How was that experience?
Actually, once I got to jail, everybody was really nice. And there was no problems. I did kind of, the guy, I don't know, like, I thought maybe it was like my winning personality and they just really liked me. But like, I would be like, oh, I'm thirsty. Can I get some water? And they would jump up, and in seconds, I would have water. The dude next to me, they made him wait like an hour or 2 hours usually before he could get a cup of water.
Well, I hope you recognize
really that. I was thirsty, and thank you for not making me wait like the guy next to me.
Yeah, there's a little bit of celebrity privilege in jail because guards wear name tags, and they know they don't want someone like this to be posting their names online if they're doing something inappropriate, right?
I guess so. I didn't really think about it like that.
Jail isn't that pleasant for everyone, and I'm sure you can appreciate that. Having seen what people go through in the process and everything else. So for this pretrial hearing coming up on March 25th, as of right now, the prosecutors are still charging him with these 3 felony counts. So we're going to encourage you to call the same number that we asked you to call earlier. This is the DeKalb County Prosecutor's Office, and simply tell them that you know what went down, you've seen the video footage, and you're asking them to drop the charges. Obviously, we've got him out on bail. We don't need to ask for release now.
Sorry. Also, I've heard that
Deb
Wortman, you have some messages for me that you've been collecting and holding. If maybe, I'm not sure when we'll see each other next, maybe at the pretrial, March 25th. If so, if you could get those messages to me, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
And through Madeline.
Deborah, what? I'm not sure.
Apparently, the prosecutor in DeKalb County moonlights as his secretary.
All right.
I do appreciate it, though, and I'm really looking forward to hearing those messages.
And for anybody that needs to get in touch with Dave or Madeline, Madeline's email is here as well and in the description. So Leo went through an experience with this as well. Leo, do you have anything you want to say about the situation that the cops put you in here?
He's currently very concerned about some teeth he has coming through.
Well, can you hold him up and at least introduce him to all your fans?
We are kind of trying to shield him from this as much as possible. You're going to have to take our word for it. He's absolutely adorable and usually in a much better mood.
But we can hear the baby out of the spotlight. All right, well, thanks, and we certainly understand that when you have a family, there are a lot of extra costs that are incurred when you go through something like this. So finally, Dave, do you have anything you'd like to share with your fans or with the broader MMA community or anybody else who you want to reach out to with this, the things that they want to know, you want them to know about this?
Thank you. I didn't, like I said, I had no idea about this video when I was in jail, and then I got out, thinking, what am I going to do? And then there was already all this going on and all this support. It's nice to know you're not alone.
And also to the MMA fans, the responsibility that you have when being a trained person with skills that can hurt people, and never take advantage of that. It's important that you stand up and use your voice to let people know. Just because you can use force doesn't mean that you should. And you have a powerful voice and a powerful platform to stand on with that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. You are not alone if you feel a little angst at the police state, especially after watching the video of Dave Herman's arrest. But really, if you're just paying any attention to what's going on in America today. Dave, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and share this video, and stay tuned for more updates about Dave Herman's case.
Also, if you wouldn't mind, when you call the prosecutor's office, asking for the badges of the police officers that endangered the life of our child, we would appreciate that as well.
Yes, I would really appreciate that.
Excellent.
We need to get dangerous people like this off our streets.
Thanks very much for joining us, guys.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
So, there is their response, and he is now out. Again, if you go to you can go to facebook.com/anti-tyranny news, and I have that video posted also with the link to the GoFundMe campaign that was started to help support Dave Herman and his wife. You can also go to youtube.com and go to Adam Kokesh, and the video's there. It's one of those things that it's something when someone's willing to stand up. Now, people go, well, he by questioning them, he taunted them. No. The police have their own law that they're supposed to be following, and that law says that if someone asks, they have to show 3 forms of ID. If you watch the original video, one cop actually did show 2 forms of ID to the wife, not to Dave, and refused to show a third because it was his driver's license, and that has my address on it. Well, you get my address, just because you have a uniform and badge doesn't mean that you're not a bad person and you could hurt me. So, that whole argument's BS. 2, if you are going to enforce laws, then you must follow the laws that are set in place for you to follow. Otherwise, you really don't have any justification to claim authority over people when you won't even follow your own rules. And, these were a couple that were going down the road. Never mind that he is an MMA fighter. Look at it this way. They're just a couple with their kid going down the road, start having car problems. They turn on their blinkers. Well, because they're having car problems and they're driving with their blinkers on, and they're waiting to get to the next exit with the gas station, those people are suspect. So he's having car problems. So also cherries and berries behind him. He says, well, I'm not pulling off in a dark highway. Let me pull off in this gas station right here at this next stop. So that's what he does. Pulls off into the gas station where it's lit up. I'll tell you one reason cops don't like that. They have a big giant spotlight. They like when you pull over in dark places, because then they can shove that right into your mirror, blind you, light up the whole inside of your car, and you can't see them. And that's wrong. Because you have just as much right to try to see the person coming up on you. Because what if they aren't a police officer? What if there's someone imitating a police officer? Or what if that police officer is corrupt and beats them both up or shoots them? Or you never know. Because in the end, police officers are nothing more than a human. So he pulls off into this gas station that's lit up. So in reality, it's safer for both individuals instead of just safer for the officer. Steps out of his vehicles. So he gets out of his vehicle, walks to the back, has his hands, visible, kind of up to the side. And I think he was truly actually expecting, them to ask, what's going on? Instead, they get out, draw tasers, start yelling at him. Get on the ground, get on the ground, get on the ground. Well, geez, he starts asking for ID. Prove who you are. it's the law that you're supposed to provide 3 forms of ID. Like I said, eventually after they already tased him, put him in handcuffs, put him in the back of the car, and that they showed 2 forms. Well, one cop showed 2 forms. Then you guys see the whole footage, because then you see where the one cop goes, "Oh, maybe they weren't on," talking about the dash cams, and you hear the older officer. Um, he's sitting there saying that, type deal. Can't really tell exactly what he's really meaning by the chuckle that the guy got, kind of like worried but relieved at the same time, in a way. But her video, because she decided to record with her cell phone. Great thing she did it. Probably part of that came from interning with Adam at one point in her life. I think early on in the conception of Adam versus the Man, she interned for him. So she had some insight that, yeah, I definitely need to pull out my phone. And Dave Herman knew the law. And I urge people to try to at least call. Either call or email the DeKalb County prosecutor, which they have the number there. It's 260-925-1646, and ask that the charges be dropped. Again, watch original footage. There is an email there too, also, to get a hold of Madeline Herman, the wife, if you're able to help out in any way. It's a situation where if people keep bowing down to the police and allowing them to run amok, it'll only get worse. You either stand up to whether you call it unconstitutional or just plain against your rights as a human being. These actions that they're taking as law enforcement is unmoral and unwarranted and unwanted by communities. And those people that call for those types of action, you can call for it all you want, but when you're put into the situation, which you eventually will if it's allowed to grow, you will be placed in the same situation where you are looked at as a criminal. And there's plenty of statistics out there that show that, everybody out there commits, felonies every day. It's just something, because there's so many laws on top of laws on top of laws, and not many laws ever get repealed. They might not ever enforce the law, but they're still there. There's laws that say you can't shower on certain days. There's laws out there that say that you can't kiss on certain days. Or you can't run water on certain days, but these laws aren't ever enforced. Why? Well, because they're ridiculous in today's circumstances. But when you become an obstacle for these people that continue to grab more power and more power, once you become the obstacle, you become a criminal. And what's even worse is a lot of the vulnerable people, easily influenced, going through problems, or even hopped up on pharmaceuticals, are easily manipulated into doing a lot worse than what they could already be charged with crimes. A lot of the crimes that people do commit, the punishment is pretty small. But they could do something with it, accumulate it, and they can do it to hurt your future. But if they really want you gone, they can set you up, basically. And I think when you see how these ABC agencies tend to always be involved in a lot of these situations, high-profile situations, you tend to wonder, is that what's really going on there? Are these maybe, emotionally, unstable people? Are they pharmaceutical? Or are they know something? Or they're being used as an example for what they exposed. We know that happens. I think that's what happened with the journalist, the article I covered earlier. I think if we start seeing the verges of World War III, I think if we see this economic collapse that's ready to happen, I'd hate to see the bubble actually get bigger. So, sad to say, it'd probably actually be better if we seen the economic collapse now than later, because if the bubble gets bigger, that just means people are fooled into putting their money where it's not exactly safe. And then they lose more. I think they will really crack down on the internet, the media, even just the everyday person tweeting things or putting things on Facebook or what pops up in your Google search engine. I think all of this is coming together to work in the elite's favor, and the only hope we got is through a lot of these encrypted networks, Tor networks, specialty little encrypted networks. And hopefully that doesn't happen. And that's why, if you want to see networks like this be able to succeed, you need to support networks like UCY and the other alternative networks out there that will be crushed if you see SOPA and CISPA, that type of stuff, get passed, and what Obama has in store. The alternative media needs to be able to, put information out there, put videos out, put commercials out, put a lot of the people out that are speaking out about it, that know the ins and outs of these bills, and really expose them for what they are. And it's getting to a point where if they keep playing off of things like a Sony hack and all this, they'll convince enough people to go along with it. Or they'll convince themselves that they convinced enough people to go along with it. And no matter what, they'll get it through. It's only going to be the people standing up against it, making a big ruckus out of it. And when whether it be MSN or CNN or Fox News or anyone trying to propagandize why we need these internet bills, don't be fooled. And call them out. don't give them your business. Because it's to the point that if we don't start walking the walk, we're going to end up paying for it. And like I said, we're reaching a tipping point. And are we going to allow it to tip to the other side in their favor? And we're on the verge of losing that ability to exercise our rights to prevent things, because they're going to finish taking our rights away. When they can start controlling the internet, when they can start controlling the TV, the traffic between person to person, when they start clamping down on things like that, we're not going to have the ease of information like we used to. Think if they really did go to a world war, I bet you a lot of the U.S. airlines would be turned into bombers or something. They would be taken over by the military. They wouldn't have to go out and make a whole bunch. Rip out all the seats, put some bay doors in right here, and we'll put some racks in right here, and we'll be good to go. Put all the electronics on that we need. I think information would definitely be taken back a couple of decades. And it'll be harder for people to communicate, to mobilize against any type of tyrannical takeover. And it would allow that tyrannical takeover to happen. Hopefully we don't get there. Hopefully there's enough people out there that believe in freedom, believe in liberty, and believe in a free internet, a true free internet, that, listen, you can't prevent all the bad stuff, but even if the government had control, they're going to worry about censoring, not hackers taking your information. You're still going to need people like LifeLock and stuff. You're still going to have the same issues, because they're not going to gain control to stop the hackers from accessing your information. Their main focus is on their information, making sure you're not reporting it. That's going to be their motivator. Once they have control over the media as a whole, even alternative, the internet, communications, we've already seen them test out where they cut mobile communications during a protest. We've seen where, well, we can just cause a bigger issue and justify it. And then we can see, even like in New York, even if you don't agree with the Occupy protest, when you have peaceful protesters and then they get crowded into a pin when they're told to disperse, well, I can't turn around. You have a line of cops behind me. Disperse. You need to disperse, or I can't go anywhere. You guys won't let me. They beat them. It was all over YouTube. It was even on things like RT. And guess what? There was a major outrage by the public. They're gaining control. Take care. I'll see you next week. Have a great weekend. Stay tuned here on UCY.tv.
I waste my time.